I used to start my mornings with a bell. You keep a city moving by announcing yourself, ring gentle at dawn, clatter louder when the snow makes the rails complain. At 68, retired from the tram, I still wake up early. Muscle memory. I put the kettle on, roll my knees, and look out at the wires that used to hum like a patient's heartbeat. I tell the house. Departing from Depot 1 platform slippers. My sense of humor is the part of me that refuses to retire. That morning, I wasn't expecting company. The doorbell gave a polite sting, an electric cousin to the old brass bells I knew so well. On my stoop stood my son Artem and his wife Katya, 35 and 33. Fit, dressed in weekend casual diplomacy. Katya held a bakery box like a peace treaty. Artem kept both hands in his jacket pockets, never a good sign. It means he's carrying words he doesn't want to drop. How's my favorite driver? Katya sang. Off duty, I said. All routes detoured through the kitchen. Come in. We sat. They complimented the new window latches, the way the sunlight stitched itself onto my table. Katya opened the cake box to reveal a honey cake, the sort that glues your molars together and makes a person agree to things. I took a ceremonial forkful. I would need the sugar, it turned out. There's something we wanted to run by you, Artem said, and there it was, his cautious voice. He gets it from me, that tendency to circle the station before pulling in. It's about care. Care? I said. I wash. I water the plant. I wear socks. I'm caring magnificently. Katya smiled too quickly. It's about your knee and the blood pressure, just for a month. Your doctor would love it. Let's place you in an assisted living facility for a month. A rehab stay. It's temporary. Temporary, Artem echoed. Just a month. A month. In tram time, that's 1,000 loops of the city. You can rewire the whole network in a month if you're not careful. Katya pulled a neat packet from her tote bag. Cream-colored folder, tabs like teeth. I saw, in a quick scan, the words. Temporary guardianship, rehabilitation enrollment, finance plan, facility intake. Another page had power of attorney, in bold, like a headline announcing that weather exists. You'd still be making decisions, Katya said. We just sign a temporary guardianship so we can help with paperwork. Facilities need a contact. It's safer. And we'll need access to bills while you're getting stronger. Bills, I said. Those creatures that come through the slot asking for warmth and attention. Artem's knee jiggled. Dad, it's just practical. A signature here means we can pay your utilities. Maybe sell the old Lada if needed. The rehab is excellent. My humor kept the carriage on track. A signature here, I said, tapping the packet, and you get to be conductor for a month. You blow the whistle. I sit in the passenger section. It's not like that, Katya said softly. She has a voice for sick animals and disobedient electronics. Just to help. I have always believed in help that looks like help. The help that looks like a leash, however nicely braided, is still a leash. I flipped pages and stopped on a form with 4 lines that made my calluses itch. Temporary guardianship, financial access, POA, property, bank authorization. All tattooed with cheerful checkboxes. I set the packet down like it might explode. Tell me about this rehab, I said. Artem looked quick at Katya, then at his hands. They have group classes, balance training, meal delivery, nurse check-ins. And they need you to be temporary guardians, I said. For a month. Which month? Soon, Katya said. They have an opening next week. The way she said, opening, had the tidy certainty of a planned detour. I remembered the depot. You never announce a detour unless the cones are already on the street. I smiled, the way you smile at a rider who insists their stop is the next one when you know it's 2 away. I appreciate the cake, I said. I appreciate the concern. I'll read this packet. When I drove, we had a rule, never change tracks without looking. Artem relaxed an inch. Good. We'll leave it with you. They stood, relieved. At the door, Katya looked carefully into my eyes, the way a person looks into a mirror to see if it tells the truth. You know we love you. I touched the door frame. I know. And I love you. That's why I'm going to read. And think. When they left, I placed the packet on the table and made tea strong enough to stand on its own leaves. Tram drivers have a talent for routine, but they also have a nose for a bend that wasn't there yesterday. I picked up my phone and scrolled to contacts labeled like stops: doctor, lawyer, notary. I might be retired, but the bell in me still worked. I rang it silently for myself. The line ahead had a switch and I intended to keep my hands on the lever. The next morning, I called my GP and asked for an independent capacity assessment. It's a mouthful, like the bakery's walnut pastries, but it gets the job done. I wanted someone whose paycheck didn't depend on my son's worry or my daughter-in-law's confidence. The receptionist said the geriatric psychiatrist could see me Wednesday. I could have kissed the whole clinic for that word, independent. I also called an attorney. Not mine, not yet, mine is a good man, but he and Artem once drank together after football and friendships tangle threads. I searched for one who wouldn't know my family's jokes or my birthday. I found MS. Halia, who sounded on the phone like a person who keeps her pens in a row and her promises even straighter. I told her I wanted a consultation about powers of attorney and guardianship. She said she would see me Friday and asked, "Do you want to record the consultation for your records?" I said I did, and I would do it openly, with her consent. "Good," she said. "Bring your consent app. And bring the packet." I put the packet in a cardboard sleeve labeled Tram Maps. Old Habits. If you put a fox in a chicken coop, at least give it a polite disguise. For 2 days I lived as usual. I boiled potatoes, fed the stubborn cat that isn't mine, and took philosophical notes about television. Meanwhile, I read the packet the way I used to read route updates, pencil in hand, margin muttering. I circled phrases that promised a lot and defined nothing. For your benefit, in your best interest, streamlined access. I underlined the gods of the modern form: power, consent, authorization. I marked a tiny asterisk where temporary snuggled up to 30 days with an option to renew. On Wednesday, the psychiatrist's office smelled like lemon wipes and ambition. The doctor was young enough to have been born after my knees started complaining. She introduced herself with a gentle grip and an attentive face. "We'll talk, and I'll ask you to do some tasks," she said. "Is that all right?" "If you need me to drive us to the seaside, you're out of luck," I said. "But I can take you around the block and tell you where the rails used to sing." We talked. She asked me the year, the season, the president, the street I lived on, and why I chose it. She asked me to remember 3 words: apple, table, coin, and later asked for them back. She asked about my bills, my medications, my routine. I told her about the garden hose that refuses to coil, and the way my bank app logs me out at the worst possible moment. She asked what a power of attorney was. I told her, a tool that can be a wrench or a crowbar, depending on who's holding it. She watched me draw a clock. Her eyebrow lifted, impressed, when I put the numbers in their proper places and set the hands at 11:10. I would have drawn the tram timetable if she asked. I joked, because that's how I keep my mind from napping. "If this is a test, can I request the essay portion?" She smiled. "You just did." At the end, she said, "From what I see today, your capacity is intact. I'll write an independent assessment. It will state that you can understand, appreciate, reason, and communicate a choice about the matters we discussed." She chose those 4 verbs like she was building a chair you could sit on. "Write it as if my worst relative will read it," I said. "I always do." When I left, I felt the rails line up under me, a solid clunk as the switch settled. I carried that paper in my pocket the way you carry a lucky fare ticket. Friday came with rain, and I took a bus to Ms. Halia. Her office was on the 2nd floor of a building that could use a new jacket. Inside, it was neat enough to eat from the floor, though we refrained. She shook my hand and nodded at my phone. "You wanted to record?" "Yes," I said, ready to be that old man with a gadget. With your permission. She nodded, and I pressed the red circle. This is a consultation between Mr. Mikola. She used my name. And Attorney Halia. He has my permission to record. The packet looked smaller on her desk. She read quickly, eyes skimming like a tram on fresh rails. This temporary guardianship is an application for control during the rehab stay, she said. It also folds in a financial power and property authorization. That's broad. It's not inherently bad if you trust the agents. But it's wide open. I trust my son to fix a leaky faucet, I said. I don't trust him with my passwords when his wife has opinions. She didn't smile. Lawyers hold their smiles in reserve. You can revoke any prior powers of attorney today, she said. We can draft a fresh one that appoints a neutral professional, or 2 co-agents who must act together. Or no POA at all. Your capacity assessment supports whatever decision you make. We discussed notaries, banks, copies, certified mail. She explained that coercion should be documented, not dramatized. If there's pressure, write it down and have a notary witness your statement. Don't argue on the phone. Paper beats noise. I asked questions the way I once charted new tracks. What if the facility refuses admission without guardianship? She said it shouldn't. A healthcare proxy for decisions, limited, would do. What if they tried to act on a revoked POA? She said we would notify institutions. Anyone who uses a revoked document risks fraud. When we were done, she printed the revocations. Sign here, she said. We'll date them, notarize them downstairs. I'll keep a copy in my file. And I'll give you a letter summarizing this consult. The recording is yours too. Back it up. The pen felt heavier than any lever on a tram. I signed. My name is a compact route, but it carries me from one end of life to the other. I signed, and the room felt taller. When we reached the notary, I read my statement out loud. On this date, without coercion, I revoke all prior powers of attorney. I note that family members pressed me to sign a temporary guardianship packet under the pretext of rehabilitation, including access to property and accounts. I decline. The notary stamped the page with a sound like a bell. The rails hummed. The line was mine again. I went home and made copies. I sent certified letters to my bank and to the clinics. I emailed the recording to myself twice and to a friend who runs a chess club and remembers everything. That night, the packet sat on my table, growing smaller by the minute. I might still go to rehab. I might accept help. But I would board that tram by my own feet, not be shoved through the doors. On Sunday, Artem called. No. Hello? Just. Dad, did you read it? I did, I said. And I saw the deter markers. Long pause. We're trying to help. I believe you, I said. I also believe in gravity, and it doesn't care if my intentions are noble. I met with a psychiatrist and an attorney. Capacity intact. I revoked prior powers of attorney. I documented the pressure to sign. If we're going to talk, we'll talk like grown people with the brakes tested. Katia called later from her number. This is getting adversarial, she said, voice tight. It doesn't have to be, I said. But I will not sign a temporary guardianship that includes access to property and bank accounts. If I need rehab, we can do admission papers without guardianship. We can create a limited health proxy that is specific and expires shortly. She inhaled sharply, then exhaled a word. Fine. It didn't sound fine. On Tuesday, they appeared again, this time with bad weather stuffed into their coats. One more conversation, Artem said. The facility coordinator is flexible. We redid the packet. Katia took out a newer folder. Glossy this time, like a magazine. The new forms were cleaner, the language friendlier. They put the word, temporary, in italics, as if devotion could be font. But as I read, I saw the same core, guardianship for rehabilitation purposes, with authority to manage property and accounts for necessary expenses. Their signatures were already on some of the agent lines, optimistic drafting. I smiled because my face knows no other default. I opened my drawer and took out my capacity report, notary stamped revocations, and the lawyer's summary letter. I set them down like a hand at cards. I adore you both. I don't adore this, I said. I like help that keeps me company, not help that moves into my wallet. Artem's jaw clenched. He has my jaw. It's unfortunate that bones can travel down generations carrying grudges. Dad, we're not thieves. I didn't say thieves, I said. I said controllers. There's a difference. One takes quietly. The other declares it's for your own good. Katia looked at the papers, then at me. I could see the calculation, how to get the result without the fight. She folded the packet back into the tote, which made the room breathe again. We'll do it your way, she said finally. Let's schedule rehab with just a health proxy. Wonderful, I said. I'm free next week for a tour. They left. I watched from the window as they stood by their car, arguing with shoulders and elbows. If I were a poet, I'm a tram man, I would say the sky pressed down until the asphalt wanted to cry. Instead, I muttered, switch cleared, and made soup. 2 days later, the phone rang. Unknown number. A woman introduced herself as an intake paralegal from a law firm I didn't know. We received a packet for temporary guardianship regarding your rehabilitation enrollment, she said. Your son submitted it with what appears to be your signed consent. We routinely called the principal to confirm. Is this correct? My teacup did a small, horrified tap on the saucer. No, I said. I declined that arrangement. We thought so, she said. Because the signature on this consent doesn't match the signature on your recent notarized revocation that was forwarded to us by Ms. Halia. Did you also authorize your son to submit a new POA? I did not, I said. I'm going to connect you to our attorney, she said, voice shifting into the mode that kept vases from falling. We have an obligation to report suspected forgery and potential financial exploitation of an older adult. Do you consent to us documenting this call? Yes, I said carefully, like each letter might break. The intake lawyer came on, efficient, sober. He asked me to confirm my identity, and said he had already contacted Ms. Halia. We will notify social services to open an investigation, he said. And we will alert the court that a petition is unsupported. You will likely be contacted by a social worker. The rails in my chest screeched. This is not how I wanted the bell rung. Not to humiliate my son. Not to turn love into a file number. But when a storm hits, the switchman doesn't argue with the wind. He gets the cars to safety. I hung up and sat at the table. My cat, yes, mine now, adoption is a series of small surrenders, jumped into my lap and head-butted my sternum until my breath remembered itself. I wished I could have my old motorman's window, the big one that showed you everything at once, tracks, turnouts, the idiot trying to outrun you, the cyclist who thought he invented physics. I wanted to see the whole situation from above. Instead, I had papers and a recording and a heart that knocked too hard. Soon after, a text buzzed from Artem. We submitted the form. It's just to make sure you get into rehab, Dad. Why did a lawyer call? I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I typed. Because the stop you're aiming for isn't on my route. The social worker called on Friday afternoon when people are tired enough to tell the truth. She introduced herself as Alina, voice like a fresco, calm, beautiful, and older than the building around it. This is a routine call following a report, she said. Do you feel safe at home? Yes, I said. Until someone stares at my signature with hungry eyes. She let the joke pass like a tram with doors closed. I'll be visiting next week. In the meantime, can you email me any relevant documents? The capacity assessment, the attorney's letter, the revocation, and any recordings. I did. I'm efficient when my dignity is on the line. She replied within an hour, thanking me, and added, I appreciate your clarity. Clarity might be my only luxury. I grew up in a world where your personal file was something you never saw. I'm old enough now to curate my own archive, label each folder with facts, not rumors. Over the weekend, I made a binder. Inside, my identification, the capacity report, a list of medications, the revocation, the lawyer's letter, my bank contacts, my advance directive, and a page titled, "What Help Looks Like," where I listed examples, rides to appointments, meals cooked in my kitchen, company during bad TV. Below that, "What Control Looks Like," where I listed things I would not accept, access to accounts, decisions made without me, lies dressed as convenience. On Monday, Artem and Katya arrived unannounced. If they had been storm clouds, you could have set your watch by them. Artem paced. Katya didn't sit. "We didn't forge your signature," she said before hello. A younger version of me would have shouted. The current edition placed his palms flat on the table like a conductor steadying a rattling carriage. "The law firm disagrees," I said. I kept my voice level and my sentences short, like a good timetable. "They've reported it. A social worker is involved." Katya's eyes glittered with anger or threat of tears. "It's hard to tell the difference until one spills. We copied your signature. We thought it was okay. You said you'd think about it. We thought you'd thank us later. Copying my signature is forgery," I said. "It's not a gray area. It's ink with a story it shouldn't tell." Artem stopped pacing. He ran his hand over his face as if he'd been trying to wipe the day off. "We panicked," he said. "The facility said they needed a decision. I thought, if we submit, you'll be in, you'll see it's good, and you'll forgive us. We didn't want your money. We wanted authority in case something happened. Authority without consent is a crowbar," I said. "You do not love someone by prying their life open." There was pleading, then defensiveness, then a tantrum's shadow. I didn't match it. Instead, I took the binder and slid it across to them. "This is what help looks like," I said. "This is what control looks like. Choose which family you want to be." Katya said something about my stubbornness. Artem muttered about old world thinking. I held up a hand. "Enough. Listen, I have revoked prior powers of attorney. I have documented coercion at a notary. I will, if I need, appoint a neutral professional to help with finances. You may help me shop. You may drive me to the doctor. You may not drive me out of my own life." We sat with that. Somewhere outside a bin truck groaned, and I blessed it, because real life is the only adult in some rooms. Katya left first, with a slam that fluttered the packet on the counter. Artem lingered. "Dad, I'm sorry," he said. His shoulders had sunk into the posture of a boy caught with his hand in the toolbox. "I hated seeing you fail the step test." "I didn't fail," I said. "I just didn't pass elegantly." He laughed despite himself. "Like the time you dragged the tram into the depot with the regulator stuck." "Exactly," I said. "We made it home. And we didn't give the keys to someone who wanted to repaint it while we were gone." He squeezed my shoulder. "I don't know how to be your son at your age," he said. I nodded. "I don't know how to be my age either, but I know how not to be robbed." After he left, I took the packet, the glossy one, and stuck a bright sticky note to it, not my signature. Then I went to the notary. I told her what happened. She made a clean copy of the copied signature page and notarized my statement. "This is not mine." Her stamp landed like a bell warning at a blind curve. I sent the document to Alina. Paper beats noise. Again and again. Alina arrived on Wednesday with a canvas bag and a face trained to understand two truths at once. I made tea and gave her the good biscuit. She set out a thin laptop and the patience of someone who never hurries to a fire but always arrives in time. "We have the report from the law firm," she said. "The attorney detected the forgery, your copied signature. They compared it to your notarized revocation, which has a verified signature. They also received a forwarded audio recording of your consultation with Ms. Halia. That supported your intent. That recording was with consent," I said, suddenly protective of the rules. "I don't want privacy to be the casualty." "It won't be," she said. "You were transparent. That matters. The rehab facility has been informed there is no guardianship petition supported by the principal. There may still be a hearing because a packet was submitted, but based on what I see, it will be denied. I exhaled, then inhaled a memory, the smell of hot metal and winter breath. I don't want my son destroyed, I said. I just want my house to be mine. Investigations are not punishments, she said gently. They are rails to keep us from the ditch. She asked questions. I answered. She noted the list in my binder titled, "What Help Looks Like." She smiled. May I steal this idea? Take the whole binder, I said. Leave me the cat. We discussed practicalities. She suggested a family meeting with a mediator. Guardianship is a last resort, she said. You are far from that. But the conflict will continue unless we change the track layout, clarify roles, set a schedule. Her metaphor pleased me. She recommended installing a call-blocking app on my phone for a week to give me a quiet corridor. She explained the difference between a healthcare proxy, narrow, specific, and a financial POA, broad, risky. I told her I was considering appointing a professional fiduciary for finances if my sight dimmed next year. Not family? She asked. Not after this, I said, not cruelly, just like reporting weather. Before she left, she looked around the room, at the chair with my jacket draped over it, at the tram photos on the wall. There's a lot of you here, she said. That's the point, I said. The hearing came in 2 weeks, held in a room with wood paneling that tried too hard to be comforting. Artem and Katya arrived with a nervous lawyer whose shoes were too expensive to be good for standing. I had Ms. Halia, unflappable in the face of theater. Alina sat at the back, a witness to the lines we draw and then rewrite. The judge, a woman who could have driven a tram if the law had bored her, looked at me the way a dispatcher looks at a timetable. No nonsense. We have an independent capacity assessment, she said. We have a recording of a consultation with counsel, with consent. We have notarized revocations. And we have a packet submitted with a signature that a notary affirms is not the principal's. Counsel for petitioners? The young lawyer attempted a speech about urgency, about love, about safety. The judge cut him off. I accept urgency and love, she said. I do not accept forgery. Her voice was not unkind, which made it worse. Guardianship is denied. The words settled like ballast. She turned to me. Mr. Mikola, you have the right to choose your care. The court encourages you to work with social services to arrange support that respects your autonomy. I stood, then thought better of it, and sat, because my knee is a gossip and would have told everyone in the room about our business. Thank you, I said. Then I turned to Artem and Katya and nodded, a small bow to grief. Outside the courtroom, we gathered around a bench that had kept secrets for decades. Katya stared at the floor. Artem looked at me, eyes rimmed in a boy's remorse. We messed up, he said. I thought if I didn't act we'd lose time. You lost my trust, I said. But not forever. Trust is a tram, you can get off and run, but it's still there, looping. You just have to wait for it, at the right stop. Alina joined us. I propose a family care schedule and a mediation agreement, she said. Care is participation, not control. Let's put that into action. Even Katya, exhausted, nodded. Fine, she said quietly. Tell us where to show up. Mediation happened in a room with soft chairs and a table that had heard all the ways people hurt each other by trying to help. The mediator was a man who wore wool in a way that made you trust him. He began with ground rules, one voice at a time, name actions not motives. We are here to design a schedule, not assign blame. Blame is corrosive, he said. Schedules are boring. Boring wins. We drafted. Sundays, Artem takes me grocery shopping. He stands by while I pay with my card because independence is muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies. Tuesdays and Thursdays, Katya drives me to physical therapy and waits, reading something fun, not legal forms. She is not allowed to ask about my bank accounts in the car. It's in the agreement. We wrote it that way because specificity is kindness. Wednesdays, the agency nurse visits for blood pressure and chatter. Fridays, my neighbor Oksana brings soup and updates me on who in the building is secretly in love with whom. Saturday, free day, my cat owns it. The mediator suggested a monthly family meeting with Elena, 30 minutes, to review what's working and what isn't. We adjust as needed. Tracks can be moved, he said. I almost hugged him for speaking my dialect. We also set communication rules. If Artem or Katya believes I'm declining, they call Elena first, who calls me. If I want to change the plan, I say it at the meeting, not in a guilt-soaked phone call. If anyone tries to surprise me with a form, I can end the visit. We all signed. The mediator's stamp wasn't as satisfying as the notary's bell, but it hummed its own pitch of relief. Post-mediation life is a creature with new habits. Artem learned to stand beside me without reaching for my wallet. It's like teaching a dog to heel, I told him once. He looked offended, then laughed. Well, I am house-trained, he said. Progress. Katya and I had a slower thaw. On our drives to therapy, she tried small talk. I offered mild weather commentary. Then one Thursday, as we passed the tram stop where the glass still has my fingerprints from a year I can't name, she said, I am afraid of old age. Watching you stirs it up. The words landed like coins on my palm, weighty, true. I'm afraid too, I said. But my fear doesn't need your signature. She nodded, tears kept in their lanes. After that, we were kinder, if not sweet. Sometimes kindness is enough. The rehab turned out to be decent, good mats, bad coffee, instructors with knees that still believed in miracles. I chose it. Not because of their sales pitch, but because I liked the serious way they folded towels. While I was there, Artem showed up with grapes and no forms. Katya brought a crossword and no suggestions about banks. Alina visited once to check the rails. How's it working? She asked. I told her my knee was a liar, but the rest was true. Back home, we stuck to the schedule. When a cousin offered opinions on group chats, I muted him. When a neighbor offered to keep an eye on your mail, I arranged for the post office to hold it during trips. Precautions became normal, like looking both ways. My humor did its job. It turned fear into something I could hold without biting it. The bank called after a month to confirm that I still wanted the fraud alert on my account. Yes, I said. Leave the goblins outside. The court sent a final notice. Guardianship denied, case closed. In place of the heavy word, we had our lighter one, schedule. The mediator sent a follow-up. Remember, he wrote, care is participation. I printed it and taped it inside the binder's cover. Sometimes, late at night, I think about signatures. How you learn to write your name before you really know who you are. How it changes over decades, quickening or slowing, but remains a line that binds yourself to the world. A copied signature can trick a clerk, but it cannot carry your history. It cannot know the way your hand pauses on the second letter because the teacher you loved had a lisp that emphasized it. It cannot know how the ink caught on the paper the day your father died. A forgery is a tourist, a signature is a citizen. On a Sunday morning, the city clicked into shape. The tram line outside sang low because it was damp, and even the rails get sentimental in weather. I stood at my window and watched a driver I didn't recognize take the curve with patience, not speed. Good. Patience gets you home. Speed gets you headlines. Artem was due to arrive with oranges. He texted ahead, as the schedule requires. At the stop. 2 minutes. He has learned to speak my language. Katya would come later to walk me through the park path that doesn't argue with my knee. We would pass the kiosk where the news vendor pretends to forget my name to make me say it, loud, joyfully, like a person who knows he is here. Before they arrived, I opened my binder and flipped to the last page. I had added one more sheet. What forgiveness looks like. It listed banal things, showing up on time, not mentioning the past unless it's useful, laughter at the right decibel, water bottles in the fridge. Forgiveness is not an emotion, I'm learning. It's a schedule too. When Artem knocked, he held out the oranges like a penitent monk's offering. They're heavy, he said. You'll like them. We like heavy things, I said. They make us strong. We put them in the bowl I got from a flea market on a day so bright it convinced me to live another decade. He lingered, then said, I've applied to volunteer at the senior center. Paperwork, tech help. I think I need to learn to be useful without being in charge. I looked at him as if he were a new route drawn carefully on a fresh map. That is a good thing to learn, I said. I thought of my young drivers, how I taught them to brake early, how many lives that saved. Being in charge is not power, I said. Being responsible is. Katia arrived later with walking shoes and silence, which I have come to appreciate. We walked the park's easy loop. Children compared scooters, old men compared presidents. A dog carried a stick proudly, as if he had written it. We didn't talk about courts or packets. We talked about soup, which is to say we practiced peace. At home, after they left, I made tea and set my phone to play the recording of the consultation with Ms. Halia, not to savor victory, but to remember clarity. On the recording, at the end, my voice says, I want to be helped without being stolen from. Her voice says, then we will write that. Paper beats noise. But living beats paper. I don't know how many stops I have left. I know the bell still rings. When I nap, I sometimes dream I am driving again. The rails are steady, the stops familiar. Faces change, but the route is the same. People need to get where they're going without being pushed off. I wake not sad, just informed. The moral sat at my table with me, sharing the tea like an old colleague who once yelled at me for overshooting a stop. It didn't come in trumpets. It whispered, in language even my tired knee could understand. Care is participation, not control. Participation is the seat beside the driver, the hand that carries the bag, the ear that listens to the conductor announce each stop. Control is the hand that steals the lever. The difference is not small. I wrote the line on a card and taped it near the doorbell. When visitors come, they will see it before they see me. If they can live by it, they can come in. If not, the bell will ring again, and the tram will pass, and the city will continue to hum under its web of wires, promising us all the same thing, a way forward that does not require us to disappear. And if someday I cannot remember the map, if my hand shakes and the letters get shy, then we will draw a new map together, me, the social worker, the mediator, maybe even Artem and Katia, if they bring oranges and honesty. We will write it down. We will stamp it. We will commit to the schedule that keeps kindness boring and love practical. The rails are already there, humming under the street. People think the driver holds the power, but any tram man knows, the city allows you through because you follow the lines. The bell on the line is not a warning. It's a courtesy. It says, I am here, I am coming through, I am part of this. That's what I want care to be. Not a stop, not a derailment, just a bell, and the assurance that someone will ring it with me, not at me, as long as these rails last.